Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Karis, and this is the Prism Ministries podcast. You can find us at prismministries.org, PRISM, like the colors. And there's a free daily devotional there. And so feel free to check us out. Feel free to follow us on social too if you want to. There's a lot of just encouragement, daily posting. And so I hope that you'll check that out too. Well, today is a very important topic, especially when it comes to marriage. We're going to be talking about healthy conflict, and conflict is never easy. It's never easy. And, conflict, especially when it never resolves, it's excruciating. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about healthy conflict and how a functional marriage works. Hint, giving you a spoiler here that healthy marriages have conflict because we're people and we're fallible and we have different opinions and different tastes and different understandings of things. And so it is very normal to have conflict. In fact, if there's no conflict, I think maybe something is wrong. So we're going to dive into that today. So before we jump into kind of the discussion part of everything, I do want to start with a verse from Proverbs. It's in chapter 17, verses 5 and 6. An open rebuke is better than hidden love. Wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. So I want to start with this, just a thought about, isn't it valuable when somebody brings something to your attention that needs attention? Something that, gosh, you didn't even realize was a thing. You didn't realize was hindering someone else or hindering yourself. But wouldn't you want somebody to point something out to you if there was something dangerous around the corner? We cannot see 360 degrees around ourselves. And so it's important to have people that are not afraid to maybe tell us something difficult sometimes. And that can help us in our lives. It can help us avoid pain and heartbreak if we can listen and heed the warning or, the advice. And I'm not talking about stuff that just tears people down. I'm not talking about things like that. I'm talking about, hey, maybe you shouldn't buy that car at 10% interest because it could just eat up all your finances and you could really struggle down the road. Or maybe you should think about, getting some marriage counseling before getting married, just to get everything out in the open so that you don't have more difficulty later on. Or maybe, instead of being so direct with people, you should soften your approach a little bit because people take offense to just the nature of the conversation, especially if it's so blunt. And people, just a note on that, people are different in their communication styles, and that comes out differently in their work and in church relationships and all of that. So anyways, if we saw a pothole in front of someone, we'd want to tell them about it, right? We'd want to tell them, hey, watch out for that because I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to unnecessarily fall into something that could really hurt your future. So even more so, it's so important in a marriage relationship to be able to hear the other person and what they're saying. I think there's so much conflict that comes up in marriage because we just have not learned how to have a healthy disagreement. And also, there's possibly somebody in the relationship that it's like, my way is the way to go. I'm not bending. I'm not moving. We are not compromising. We are doing it my way. And that, unfortunately, is a recipe for disaster because when you're, like we talked about last time, when you're in a marriage relationship with somebody, you're in a partnership and everyone has a say. And yes, the man is typically like the deciding factor, but if he is a humble man and he is a soft-hearted man, he is going to really listen to what his wife is saying. And he's going to take all of that into account. And the wife is going to feel heard. Now, does it always go her way? No. No, of course not. Should it always go his way? No, it should not. This is a partnership we're talking about. We're talking about submitting one to another. So anyways, what is the difference between healthy fighting and unhealthy fighting? Well, healthy fighting, healthy disagreements, I should say, we're not abusing the other person. We're not calling them names. We're not bringing up all the past history. We're not fighting dirty, so they say, where you're bringing up all the stuff from the past and you're throwing in the kitchen sink and, you're basically in your angry moment abusing the other person. That's not the way to go. If you can't have a conversation, I know it says in the Bible, don't let the sun go down on your anger. And that's a very important verse in, where is it here? Ephesians 4:25-27 says, so stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbors the truth, for we are all parts of the same body. And don't sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you're still angry, because anger gives a foothold to the devil. Now, I don't take that verse so literally, because sometimes you're exhausted and it's not a good time to finish a conversation. It's not a good time to, go late into the night when you're exhausted and hash things out or get to a resolution. You may not even be able to have the band power, like the brain power, the bandwidth to do that. So if you guys decide, hey, we're going to table this tonight, let's just do that, please, and let's go to sleep and have a good night's rest, and we'll talk about it at another agreed upon time. Totally fine. What's meaning here is just don't let things fester. Don't let bitterness get a foothold, because anger turns to bitterness and resentment. And that is something that we as Christians, nobody really needs to have, because it's very detrimental to our soul. And so we want to avoid that. So that's fighting dirty. It's like, kind of being abusive toward the other person. Now, if you accidentally let things slip because you're so angry, just, we don't want to fight that way. We don't want to have a disagreement that way. But, hopefully we can, if we know that the other person has good intentions for us, we can move on and, work things out. A healthy disagreement involves two people having a conversation. There's definitely no name calling. There's no, you're stupid or this is a stupid idea. Like, there is mutual respect. You're saying, I think we should do this because of this. The other person saying, I think we should do this because of this. And then you're coming to some kind of resolution. And it may be a compromise. It may be something that you haven't thought of before, and you're both like, oh, great, let's do it that way. But there is some kind of resolution. And I guess in the healthiest form of resolution, both parties are good with it. Sometimes, somebody has to give something up. And so that's the nature of marriage, is we are sacrificing for the other person because we love them. If it's all one-sided sacrifice, though, that is going to wear on a relationship. And so we have to make sure that we are balanced in the way that we're communicating, the way that we're sacrificing, so that the other person can feel loved and the other person can feel appreciated. There's been relationships that I've seen where you have one person that's always the giver and the other person's always the taker, and that is a recipe for disaster. And it may not even be that the taker thinks that they're taking. They may actually be giving in their love language, but the other person doesn't receive it because that's not their love language. And so we'll get into love languages too, because that's so important. But anyways, fighting, healthy disagreement involves respect. It involves considering the other person's thoughts and feelings. It says in the Bible, consider other people as more important than yourself. It's putting your concern for the other person on the table. And I think that's so important, because when we don't do that, then we continue a pattern of not valuing the other person. And it's so important to value the people in our lives, especially the people that we're married to, especially those people. So I want to touch on Matthew 18 for a minute, because this is basically Jesus talking about how to resolve conflict. And it's less about in a marriage, but I think it is relevant because it is relationships, and it is you know, having to do with conflict. So anyways, if another believer sins against you, go privately and point out the offense. If the other person listens and confesses it, you have won that person back. But if you are unsuccessful, take one or two others with you and go back again, so that everything you say may be confirmed by 2 or 3 witnesses. If the person still refuses to listen, take your case to the church. Then, if he or she won't accept the church's decision, treat that person as a pagan or a corrupt tax collector. I think another part of that story, that verse talks about, don't even eat with that person. So, what do you do when there seems to be an unreconcilable issue? This is one reason why I think marriage coaching marriage counseling and coaching is so important. First, if you are getting married and you're getting ready to get, together and all this stuff, marriage coaching is so valuable because it puts you in an environment where you have to talk about everything that's important in a marriage. And there's a third party. There's another couple, where there's a group of people, and they are sharing their wisdom and their experiences, and sharing with you valuable tidbits that can help you later in your marriage. And it kind of helps you see, oh, it's not so bad if we have a third party, if we need help with something. And then counseling. Oh my gosh, such a huge help to have a third party. Because again, we cannot see 360 degrees around ourselves, and it helps to have another perspective. I remember we were in counseling several years ago, and the man was amazing. He was a very unusual counselor, and he would always say, "Live for God, smile," and that was like, I wish I would have made T-shirts that say that, because it's so cute and memorable. But he would say, on the tension points in our marriage, he would say, you need to find what's going to work for both of you. If you are committed to each other, you need to find what's going to work for both of you. And that obviously is going to require compromise. And so that was a great piece of marriage advice that I took from that counselor. And it's so important to if you're going to go to counseling as well. And this is another reason why marriage coaching is important, because you see, is your spouse, for one, willing to go to an environment where a third party can chime in? The other is watching to see, is this person receptive to the counselor? Is the counselor, of course, a good one, but is my spouse, my potential spouse, receptive? Like, are they willing to make changes? Because if you have somebody with a personality issue that comes into therapy, then you're not going to see any change. They're not going to be receptive to what the counselor is saying. And so you can very easily determine, is this person a good match for me? Because I need somebody who's going to be receptive to feedback and is going to be accountable. And so that's kind of a litmus test, another litmus test. So wrapping this all up, conflict is an important part of marriage. It's just part of life. We will have conflict, but the key is, how do we handle the conflict? How do we respect and love the other person within the conflict? We are looking at the other person like, I'm not agreeing with what they're saying, but I love them. I know that they have my best interest at heart, and we're going to talk this through. We may not get to a solution overnight, but eventually we will get to a solution, because I'm committed to this person, and I know this person is committed to me. And so healthy disagreements are ones where we are considering the needs of the other person. We are looking out for the best interests of the other person. We are saying to ourselves, there may be some compromise that I need to make here in this situation. And if we need it, we're allowing feedback. We're allowing, ourselves to go to counseling and being receptive to the feedback there. So, anyways, I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions about marriage or conflict in marriage or any thoughts, I would love to hear them. Please put them in the comments below. And I hope this is helpful. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.